market is so strong right now, and I just think that there's a run that's still very much taking place.
What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? I'm Zhan Morning, and this is Wrestling with Cards. This is the first interview I've had on the channel, and I love the interview format. I really feel like when you get two people together to discuss a specific topic, no matter what that topic is, even if you have also differing opinions on those topics, I think it can really help others learn about that topic. And just kind of cause you to maybe think about things a little differently, look at things from a different perspective, and you guys know I'm all about doing things different. And with our first guest, David Peck. When I decided I was going to start doing interviews, I was like, David Peck, first guy I'm getting on. Huge influence to me. In my opinion, David Peck put wrestling cards on the map from a value perspective. He's been waving the flag, fighting the good fight, saying, hey, these aren't junk. This isn't stuff to throw away. This isn't kid stuff. This is stuff that's going to be valuable. Also, one of the first guys I saw posting graded cards, graded wrestling cards, not just sports cards. Graded wrestling cards all over social media, flexing.
This 22-inch arm, I'll put your head in there and smash it like a rotten tomato.
And everybody and their brothers had David on to talk about the 82 and the 83 Wrestling All-Stars. Not today. I wanted to get David on to talk about stuff like mindset, things like going against the grain of the gatekeepers and what the mainstream says you should or shouldn't invest in or buy or collect in the hobby. And we'll just look at the wrestling card market as a whole. And no, that thumbnail is not clickbait. David really does bust open a PSA 10 slab. Stay tuned for that. If this is your first time on my channel, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking out the video. If you like wrestling cards, if you like trading cards, give me one of these. Hit that subscribe button. Be greatly appreciated. So sit back, grab a caffeinated beverage, and listen to my conversation with David Peck. Today with me, the man, the myth, the legend, the ultimate wrestling card collector, the person that put wrestling cards and PSA on the map, because up until then, everyone hated wrestling cards. David Peck, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on, man?
I am excited to have you on, first guest on the channel, but you hit me with a bombshell before we started recording this. Everybody wants to do box breaks. We're going to do PSA slab breaks. Why don't you tell them about it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, thanks for having me on. I really applaud your efforts to create content around wrestling cards, and I love your enthusiasm, and you know, obviously you're a true wrestling fan like I am. So, but anyway, I recently won a sealed pack from Pre-Work Card Collector, the Carnation set. There's 3 different packs that came out with, you know, each one has 2 cards, and so anyway, we've got the it's a PSA Gem Mint 10 pack. You got Rick Martel on the front and the Road Warriors on the back.
Let's go.
I just got some grades on some of these the other day. I got it's interesting. The one Rick Martel that had the nicest centering, there was like a surface issue, and I just didn't know how PSA would treat it. And you know, anybody who's graded cards knows you just have to roll the dice sometimes. Well, unfortunately, I sent that one in under Express because I was like, man, this thing's an awesome card, but maybe we'll see what happens. It got a 6. But in my 15 card collectors club, I had opened a pack that I bought from Pre-Work Card Collector in the last year that was rated a 9, and got the highest rated Road Warriors at an 8.5, and I got a Rick Martel 9, which now that's a pop 3. And
Wow.
So anyway, anybody who knows me knows that I'm always on the hunt to try to take the market higher, try to find better stuff. So I ran the idea by you. I think that the Road Warriors doesn't have a wrinkle on the back. That's the challenge with these. So let me just show you guys. So I use wire cutters, and I use a flathead screwdriver, and we got some scissors, and you got to, you know, snip the pack. So let's do it.
I'm assuming people are screaming at your screen right now.
See if we got enough. Oh, yep, I think so. All right, so you just cut the corner off, And this shouldn't be too bad. Let's see. I'm going to cut a little more just in case. Card went flying. There we go. We got enough open. Let's see.
Is this the first PSA graded pack that you busted?
No, that the one that I just got the grades from. The 8, 5, and the 9.
Mm-hmm.
That was a sealed pack.
Cool.
Beautiful. All right, so pop that baby right in two.
Sacrilege! People are screaming at you.
All right, so now what we're going to do is we've got the little pack right here. Let's go ahead and trim it open. And the one thing you want to do, anybody watching at home, make sure you wash your hands right before you touch cards.
Yeah.
All right, now my heart's racing a little bit. Let's see what we got. Okay, so, woo, this could be good. All right, so the Martell, no wrinkle on the back. It's a little off-centered, but this is a beautiful copy. I did notice there was a little chipping on the right edge, just the way it was cut. Get that baby in the card saver. And for those watching, a lot of these carnations have a wrinkle at the top, and that is just a devastating blow.
Every one that I've ever purchased has a wrinkle on the back.
Road Warriors is a touch centered low. Turn it over. Oh, baby, no wrinkle.
Yes.
So I could kind of see through the pack. That was part of why I was sort of willing to do this. Yeah, no wrinkle. So this is the lower edge looks a little bit kind of lifted on the bottom. Not bad. Let me just preserve this. The surface from so far looks awesome. I hope I didn't nick that corner. No, perfect. Okay, I touched the card, touched my finger. I was shaking. Get that baby in there. So you got a nice, very nice Road Warriors. Very nice.
Excellent.
Anytime I handle a card and the corner just ever so touched my finger, then you start getting all paranoid.
Yeah.
Because it's like, did I do any damage? But no, I don't think so. What you're going to see with this one, though, I don't know if I can get it high enough. You see the lower border is just a little smaller than the top border.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to probably prevent this from grading a 9, but super nice card.
Yeah, so they both look great compared to most of the ones I see.
Well, now I need to take a sip of my drink just to catch my breath. That was
Hey, and while we're talking about that, before I get into the questions, are you like on team no penny sleeve, just right into the card saver to send them in?
Well, the reason probably I am for the most part is that the Wrestling All-Stars, they don't fit in a penny sleeve.
The standard size,
yeah. They probably have bigger size penny sleeves.
Yeah,
I just put it right in.
The vintage baseball, because they're a little bit bigger, they do fit in those because I bought a stack that was raw of the All-Stars, and I had nothing to put them in, and I didn't have any card savers at that exact moment. So I was able to find some vintage baseball card sleeves off of a collection I bought, yank those crap baseball cards out and put the wrestling ones in, and it works. But I've been sending stuff in without penny sleeves because I think if you're just putting the card in to the penny sleeve, unless you slice the edge of it, it's just that much more of a worry, nicking the corner,
Well, to me, I think you're increasing the risk of damage to the card. Now, everybody's got a different philosophy. Probably 2 months ago, I started obsessing over. I ripped some of those '91 classic looking for blue Undertakers. And I found a really nice one. And man, I tell you what, I was kind of obsessing over the card, and I pull it out of the card saver to like really examine it. Ended up nicking the top. First time I've ever damaged it. Now it may still grade an 8 or a 9. It's possible, but like I had 2 of them that were like potentially 10 candidates, right? Where it was like, this is a good one. And oh man, I had a hard time going to sleep. I was so pissed.
Yeah, I would.
So like this Road Warriors, as soon as we're done, like I really don't think I did any damage to it, but like I'm obsessive compulsive sometimes when I have handled a card, like just maybe a touch wrong. Like I said, it just brushed up against my finger. I think it'll be fine, but I'll definitely be examining it when we're done.
I'm assuming you're sending both of those in regardless.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing with this is the wrinkle is on the back is really the crapshoot, and you can open up sealed packs and it's there, and you're looking at a 5, maybe a 6, but most likely a 5. This Road Warriors has just really great surface. You can see how the black, there's not snow in it.
Yeah.
Which is huge. The challenge with some of these too, though, is like the bottom edge is like sometimes kind of like peels back a little bit. Like it not totally, but
yeah,
it just kind of, and so we'll see what happens with this. But yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite cards in general. Like just because like this picture of the Road Warriors is like so badass.
100% agree.
I mean, just cosmetically, I think this is a great design. And the other thing is like the back is cool. It's like Hawk and Animal grew up in the streets of Chicago and took up weightlifting to defend themselves in a tough neighborhood.
Yep.
Let's see. Hold on. There's oh yeah, here we go. Opponents don't like to wrestle against them because they enjoy breaking bones as much as winning matches.
That's so awesome.
It's just awesome,
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Hobbies: pressing refrigerators, tearing chains.
Yes.
The best one is Kamala on the back. It says he likes to eat live chickens.
Oh. All right, so I've got a bunch of questions for you. I know you have done all kinds of shows and appearances. Everybody wants to talk to you about the 82-83 All-Stars. We all know that's like one of the best sets, but I want to like get some other perspectives on just general card stuff. So early on, when you're buying this stuff and you became the first person to really tout wrestling cards and grading, like what was going through your head as you're spending money on these things that everybody's telling you not to, but you fully believe that they're going to be a good candidate for grading and you think their value will go up grading. So just talk a little bit about that mental process.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that apply. On the optimistic side, I really thought, hey, if everybody thinks this stuff sucks, it's got nowhere to go but up. So and I think it's easy to forget how cheap wrestling cards were. I mean, like to give you an example, the first pack of these I bought, I paid $16 delivered. This one I just ripped was $255. Okay. Now the quality of the cards, play a role at times, right? But still, I mean, think about that. You're talking 16 versus 250 plus. I mean, that's a pretty big jump. I think what bothered me was just that people were like dissing on other collectors. I don't get that, like I could see it through the camera. Like you have a Terry Gordy t-shirt on. Like
I do.
if I saw you on the street and we were just walking along, I didn't know you from Adam, obviously, I'd probably be like, dude, love the shirt. Super cool.
I bought it off of his daughter at a show.
Okay. Well, it's a great looking shirt. Looks good on you.
Thanks.
But it didn't, I think, probably, and this may sound kind of odd, but hearing some of the people I worked with, sort of discourage me and tell me that I was throwing money after bad and stuff. I work with some smart people, I'm in the investment business. And so, I kind of thought it was a little disheartening, but, I just laughed it off. I mean, I basically what got me really into this is, and I think anybody who knows me personally knows I'm an open book. I got my ass kicked in the market in '09, in '08. I was trading options and I lost some, at the time, was significant money. And I mean, it's still significant money. Just, I just have a lot more at this point. So, it's like you kind of move on.
Right.
But that said, I was like, golly, I'm just lighting money on fire. And, so when I started buying the cards, I was like, my thesis was they can't go to zero. It's like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people haven't traded options, but options is a derivative security, but I mean, they legitimately can go to zero. Like you can lose your entire investment. And it happened to me, a number of times. And so, if I spend $1,000 on a card, even if it dropped to 400, it stinks, but it's still 400. And on top of that, it has a chance to come back, whereas like say with options, once they expire, it's sort of game over.
All right. So we're going to bounce around a little bit here. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on that before we moved on, or that's kind of
I just think that,
question.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that wrestling just had not sort of been touched yet, but everything else really had. I mean, like in the sense that, like, take I'll be 42 in April, and in 1985, I didn't buy any. We weren't allowed, but the Garbage Pail Kids were super popular. People were really already heavily integrating those, So to me, I thought that wrestling cards was just a natural extension, and it was like, why not?
All right, so the next question I have, I told you we're going to bounce around a little bit here. A lot of these questions are just kind of things that I've either seen asked or stuff that's popped up. This is a general collector kind of question, I'm not trying to get over a specific opinion or vice versa, but talk a little bit, because me and you both know these kind of people. We've got the diehard collectors who won't let go of anything, and then we've got the ones that collect and invest. I think that's probably like me and you a little bit more. Just kind of talk about the dynamic of that and your thoughts and opinions.
Well, I don't think there's a right way to collect. And, so you and I got to know each other through the social media platforms.
Right.
I had been very active. I'm guessing you've seen some of my posts online.
Yep.
From message boards and stuff, for 10 years. And I think that one of the things that bothers me about collectors is they think there's this sort of holy grail way to collect. And if you don't do it that way, like, you're bad. I think that's complete stupidity. I mean, the idea that everybody should be in this just for the love of collecting, well, that's your opinion. But when you're shelling out your hard-earned money, and anytime you put $1 into something that has price variability, it has an element of investment, right?
Yep.
And so I just think that the people that shit on various collectors, I mean, I think they need to honestly look in the mirror and say, man, dude, I need to check myself, because the reality of it is we don't know that other person's circumstances. What if in this year, the market has changed so much. There's a lot of people that probably are making enough money flipping cards or self-grading and selling or trading to actually make a living. I mean, everybody's needs are different. Everybody's wants and desires are different, but there's a lot of people out there that don't need that much income. And, if you can go buy, let's say you buy something for $100 and you sell it to somebody else for $300, and then you take that 300 and you do it again and again and again,
That's the way to do it.
that's your prerogative, you know? And so I fall into the category where I am more a long-term player. I mean, if anybody sees my collection, let's say on the PSA registry, I mean, nobody needs 12 82A all-star sets on the registry. I just like that, right?
It's awesome.
And so I think it's awesome,
Yeah.
you know, and so, you know, for me, it's cool, right? But I think a lot of people would have no interest in that. And I think a lot of people, like, for example, like when I tell folks what's been happening with prices, you know, the first thing they say is, Dave, you need to cash in.
Yeah,
you know,
I get the same thing.
You know, and so I don't know, what's right for you might, you know, be wrong for me. And so I just don't think there's a perfect answer. And I think that most of us, like I've, you know, watched a lot of your videos. I enjoy your content. And you mentioned that you actively have bought wrestling cards for a long time. I don't fall into that category. You know, I'm a little over 10 years. And that's a long time. I mean, it's a hell of a time when you have done it every day for that long. But I didn't have, you know, like in 1991, I wasn't buying wrestling cards. You know, in 1993, I wasn't buying wrestling cards. So I think that the reality of it is that, you know, a lot of people collect for nostalgia. A lot of people collect for the money. A lot of people collect for both. But what we all have in common is most of us got started collecting trading cards when we were younger. And as we've gotten older and have at least a little disposable income or some savviness or the willingness to try to make something out of it, we're doing it. And so I think that most collectors have more in common than they realize, and just trying to say one way's right and one way's wrong, I just think, you know, ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Like and you're going to agree with me on this. Like I'm on the idea of just grading everything, regardless of what the grade is. I love the slab. I love the encapsulation of it. It's not going to get damaged unless, of course, you cut it out of the PSA case like we did a minute ago. But what is your thoughts on people who are just like, and there's no right or wrong way, but it's just hard for me to grasp people who have these grail cards that are just sitting in binders and they're not. Like, I understand the collector mindset, and sometimes you don't want to get rid of stuff, but sometimes, like, there could be some Hogan PSA 1082s in binders, in people's binders, and they're just, like, refusing to move on them. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that grading is clearly a good investment. You know, like, we'll take this Road Warriors card. You know, I don't know, you know, the market for this stuff changes obviously, but let's say you put a super clean Road Warriors card on eBay. You're going to get some interest right now. There's enough buyers out there, but let's say it sells for $200, and then that might even be a stretch. Well, you spend $12, you get the same card graded, and if that card grades an 8 right there, that's a $400 card. So I just don't see how anybody that has an ounce of economic knowledge would not see the benefit. I mean, to me, if you're going to buy anything of value, you want to try to maximize its value. It just seems like common sense to me. I think the other big risk is, what if the thing gets damaged?
Yeah.
You know, so let's just take somebody that's got one of these binders, and I don't know, a shelf falls off the wall. And next thing you know, that one of the corners, just the sheet, you know, eclipses the binder, hits the floor, and you're toast. And, you know, the price escalation on the real heavy duty wrestling cards has been intense. I mean, we're now, you know, seeing big time wrestling cards in auction houses, and they're holding their own, you know, and setting records. So I think, you know, cards, like, you can drop a card in a PSA case, and as cringe-worthy as it is to hear it hit the ground, the odds of hurting it are almost none. It might happen. I mean, if you decided to chuck it against the wall, it might happen. But, if something falls off a shelf, hits the ground, like I said, it's going to scare the crap out of you, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and you can always
and
get
I
it
actually like
reholdered too. If it cracks or something, the card will probably still be okay. Just get the holder replaced.
Yeah, but I think the other issue is that card grading, they look official. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I just love the presentation.
Me too.
Everybody has got a different. Somebody likes PSA, some like SGC, some like BGS. They've all got their strong points, but it's really cool. Like you could, if let's just say, for argument's sake, somebody comes over to your house and you say, "Hey, let me show you this card." You can hand them the card and they can look at it and flip it over and so on, and you're not worried about it. Transportation, when you mail these things, there's a, if you use the right packing materials, it's not a problem, but the safety element, so I just think that we're at a point in time where, in wrestling collectors in particular, there seems to be this sort of group of them that thinks grading's a scam, and I just think to myself, man, dude, you're just exposing yourself at really how out of touch you are with what's going on in the hobby. I mean, let's just take a raw Hogan, okay? Let's say a gorgeous 82A shows up and it's a full-size Hogan where it's like, man, it's got all that lower border. Somebody probably maybe pay a couple grand raw, maybe. Like that might even be a stretch, but let's just say. But you get that thing graded, and I mean, an 8 recently sold for $5 grand.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not paying $5 grand for a raw Hogan. Just not doing it. So Rob, I'm buddies with Rob England.
Wrestling card
He
king.
Yeah, Wrestling Card King. He bought, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and I sort of kicked myself for not bidding on this one or bidding higher. He won a really, really nice 82 Hogan before the explosion, right? And he paid $330 raw, which, at the time was, at the upper end of what they were selling for. And I remember when he got it, I said, oh man, dude, that's going to be a good one. Well, he invests $12, gets it graded, and now it's arguably a $5,000 card. So anybody that can't see the benefit of that, to me, is delusional. I think most of the reason they don't want to get it graded is because their cards aren't going to grade that high. I think one of the challenges, and I think you've seen this a little bit, is a lot of these cards, I mean, even out of the pack, they're not going to just simply grade that high. They're going to 5 or a 6 or whatever.
Yep.
So they kind of can say, well, I have an 82 Hogan. Well, what condition is it? I don't know. It's really nice. Well, okay. But the reality of it is that if you ever want to sell that stuff, you're doing yourself a disservice. And, it was funny, probably like 3 months ago, I live in a condo. And so I was talking to a neighbor's friend. And he is real big into baseball cards, but specifically, he was into like the Pirates. And, he was saying, I've got this card, I've got that card, I've got this card. And I was like, have you gotten any of them graded? No. Well, he was somebody 30 years ago at the card shows that was like looking for centered cards, looking for non-print dot cards. That wasn't as relevant. When we were kids, it's off centered. Oh, well, it's got a print dot. Well, it's still Dwight Gooden, right?
Yeah, it used to all be about the corners.
It was all about corners. Like, hey, it's got sharp corners. And so he he was saying he was a meticulous collector. Well, I said, man, you got to get this stuff graded. Oh, man, I don't need them to tell me what the condition is and so on. Same song and dance, right?
Yeah.
And I said, dude, listen. So, and he wasn't buying it. I said, you got to understand the hobby is just exploding. Card grading is taking over, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. And anyway, so I said, okay, check this out. So we get on eBay and I start pulling up realized prices of one of the cards he said he had. It was like a 1954 Topps. Oh no, he was a Tigers collector. Okay. It was like trying to think, was it Ralph? Not Ralph Kiner, but shit, I can picture the guy's face now. But anyway, it's sort of irrelevant. So anyway, that said, I said, look, here's a raw copy. Pretty nice looking card. He goes, yeah, that's a nice looking card. And let's say it was like $600.
Sure.
The same grade was like, if it was graded by PSA, was like 2,000, And so he was like, wow. And then I showed him one, and I think it was like an 8, and it was like $9,500. I said, dude, listen, you got to understand, nobody is paying $9,500 for this card raw. That's just not how it works, And so I think the other thing is card grading, with so much of the market taking place online, people like the sort of certainty that
the authenticity of it.
Hey, they said it's an 8. I may agree, you may disagree, but when I go to sell it, the market's going to treat it as an 8.
100%. And something else I want to touch on that is everybody knows the 86 Jordan Fleer. It's like the most iconic card ever. Michael Jordan, one of the best athletes ever. Even I've been looking at like PSA 1s of them because I think they're affordable at like $2,000 at a PSA 1. And it's got a crease in it. I love like kind of beat up cards. I think they kind of tell a story of someone's past, where that card has been. But from an authenticity standpoint, I'm not buying a Jordan card if it's not slabbed. And the same thing with any a Hogan, Flair, Dusty Rhodes, any of those guys I really like in that 82 set. I'm not buying any of those raw anymore unless it's for a couple bucks because I just don't trust the authenticity of it. So if we're seeing PSA 1s now of a GOAT player selling for $2,000, there's no reason to not just grade everything of the GOATs.
Well, the good news with Wrestling All-Stars is so far we've really seen mostly fake Ric Flairs. I had most of them look terrible, but I did see one that looked pretty good, right? And I emailed the seller right away. I said, hey, listen, this is a reprint. And he thought I was, bullshitting him. And I said, listen, dude, flip this thing over. You see where the number is 27. Well, it said 27A underneath it. And anyway, I said, look, this is fake, and I sent him front and backs of, copies or whatever. And he took it down. But that one copy, I could see somebody getting hosed on. I've seen a couple of fake Hogans, but they look like photo paper, right? So I mean, they're not like, I would like to say that you wouldn't be fooled, right? But boy, you get into the major sports. I mean, I've seen Jordans where, like, if you and I, I can't speak for you, but I'm not an expert on the giveaways on the 86 Fleer Jordan in terms of fake, right? There's a couple giveaways. And so, like, if I came across somebody with one and it looked good, I might think, hey, man, this is legit, right? The 52 Topps Mantle. I mean, there's some pretty good fakes out there, I have a fake Star Jordan, and that one, it looks like a trading card. I mean, it feels like a trading card, but those ones apparently are pretty easy to tell. But once again, like, let's just say you meet some guy and he goes, hey, I want to sell my collection, and you're flipping through the pages or a lucite screw down, and there's this Jordan Star rookie, and you're thinking, man, I might be hitting a jackpot. Well, it might be fake, And so I think your point is well taken. And I also would say, I think the Andre the Giant in particular is the card that shows the most that these sort of, once they become sought after and legendary. I mean, right now in auction, there was a PWCC, or Pre-War Card Collectors, got some wrestling stuff up right now. And there's an SGC2, and it was like $280 or something, right? And and if it's a 280 with 7 days to go, there's probably a few more bids coming. So to your point, it is like a lot of these are still bang for your buck when you're dealing with the best players. I think the other thing is that we have seen that, the trading card market is so hot right now. And I really think, and I'll give you a compliment. I mean, I think you're helping wrestling cards get hot.
Thank you.
I think I do. I think that we all know Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V. Every time he puts something on his Twitter page, you can go right to eBay and it's like a feeding frenzy.
Yep.
But what was really cool is when a guy like Gary V, with his 2+ million Twitter followers and nearly 7 million Instagram followers, when he says, hey, these wrestling cards are grossly undervalued, when he says that, hey, this Hulk Hogan is awesome, people listen, right? And so, I just think that now we've reached a period where trading cards are universally accepted as sort of an asset class, and grading's just part of it. And I think you should just keep doing what you're doing.
I agree in everything you just said. And you actually brought up a next point that's a good segue into my next question. This is something a lot of wrestling fans, I think sports cards fans kind of get it, but you're talking about Gary flashing his wrestling cards. Okay, so he's flashing The Rock or Hogan or Flair, right? Everybody's like, oh, they universally get those pop culture icons. But then he'll post King Kong Bundy or Kurt Hennig, and your average guy doesn't have a clue about that. You were on Brett McGrath's Stacking Slab show recently, which great podcast. Go check that out and go check out that episode. You mentioned the difference between pop culture wrestling collector and a wrestling collector. So just talk a little bit about that, because I think there's quite the divide there. I lean more towards the pop culture side, and I don't think some people understand that.
Well, all right, let's use your T-shirt for example. Okay, Terry Gordy and the Fabulous Freebirds were awesome, right?
Right.
But I mean, hell, now with them with the Confederate flags and all that, yeah. I mean, it might actually, now they're quote unquote controversial. But I would just say that Terry Gordy was a great performer, fun to watch in the ring. Okay, but he's not Hulk Hogan, right?
Right.
If we sat down, like you and I, obviously share a passion for old wrestling, right? So,
correct.
So we know lots of the names and probably almost all the names. Okay. But if we just sat and let's say we camped out in the mall with a little table and we stood there and said, hey, we're doing sort of some market research and I want to ask you if you know these wrestlers' names. And, we name Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Andre the Giant. Anybody most likely has heard of those names. Okay. But let's say you say Rip Rogers.
Good example.
I mean, anybody who's a hardcore wrestling fan knows that he's, was a good wrestler. He's a major wrestler trainer, he's an excellent mind for the business. And I don't know about him. Or I'm not a fan of Ole Anderson, but think about Ole Anderson, right?
Right.
Okay, they're not going to know who that is. And so people that are really deep into wrestling cards, they want to have those type cards, right? But what we're seeing more so is there's this huge demand for the big stars, and there's some demand for the rest. I mean, I'm obviously collecting them. I know you have some. There's other people as well, but a lot of that's actually driven from the PSA registry. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, take the 1982 Wrestling All-Star Series B. Buck Zumhoff is one of the most disgusting human beings ever, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
He's in jail for, I think he like raped his stepdaughter continuously and it's like a cult and she finally broke away. I mean, just terrible stuff, right?
Yeah.
83 All-Stars, similar scenario, Bob Sweetan, annexed himself to Canada, and I guess he recently died. Now, those guys are bad human beings. But somebody like me that's trying to put together the nicest wrestling set, I got to treat Bob Sweetan seriously.
Yeah. I
got to buy that card, okay? So you're getting demand for those cards out of just hardcore wrestling collectors. But like the average person that's more into sports cards that now just wants to sort of dabble in wrestling, they just gravitate to the pop culture icons. And so I think that the reality of it is that there's two cards. I mean, Hulk Hogan, one of the biggest stars of our lifetime, no matter whatever it is.
Yeah.
Randy Savage, obviously gained a lot of popularity. So you just have these huge names that have really played a major role in people's lives. That they think of their childhood and from an investment standpoint. I mean, when you get into the set collecting, sometimes the I'll give you an example. I paid $2,000 for a Mike Sharp PSA 10 from the '83 All-Stars. Okay, there's like 3 dudes in the world that are willing to pay $2,000 for that card. Okay, maybe it's worth more today. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Okay, but that's not really a great investment card unless you just get more people that want to complete the set. So just sort of like, I'll give you an example, like the '86 Fleer basketball. Johnny Moore is the toughest PSA 10. Okay, there's a lot of people competing to try to create a full PSA 10 set. So the Johnny Moore card has actually been a good investment because, as more people want to buy them, there's not that many of the card. Last I checked, there was like 37 or 38 of them. Well, if you've got 200 people trying to put together a PSA 10 set, it goes up in value. Okay. Well, in the wrestling world, there's a handful of sets where set collecting has, really taken hold. Wrestling All-Stars obviously is the most coveted and comes to mind. But those are tough investments because, so take Mike Sharp, population 2, right? Well, if tomorrow you find 25 sealed sets and you rip them open and all of a sudden you get one Mike Sharp, the price of that's probably going down. Okay. You get 2 or 3 of them, it's going down for sure. Okay. But on the flip side, take like right now today. I mean, the population on an '82 Hogan PSA 9 is 16. Okay. Now that number, I believe, is inflated by 2 because sometimes people play the crack and resub game. And, the difference in a 9 and a 10 on that card is just, it's like a house. Well, that said, if tomorrow another PSA 9 Hogan hits the population total, it does nothing to hurt the value, okay, at all. If anything, it might help the value because whoever gets it is going to put it for sale, okay, and all of a sudden, it goes for a big price, and you've now got a realized comp, and on top of that, the other big issue, one of the drawbacks to wrestling cards is a lot of the best ones are low population. So when they're buried in collections like mine and they don't sell, it doesn't get new people interested, And so I think actually what's been very helpful to the market is a lot of people submitting wrestling cards and trying to flip them because, cards are, very addictive. And once you start buying them, it's really, really hard to stop. And so, when you had, sorry about that, when you had, I'll give you an example, like in the past week, we had a groundbreaking sale in the baseball card market. The Mickey Mantle PSA 9 52 tops went for $5.2 million. Now, that same card was sold maybe 2 years ago by Evan Mathis, the ex-football player, for $2.8 million. So it went up $2.4 million in a couple years. Unbelievable, right? Well, the guy that bought it is an actor, and he sells businesses. Great guy. He's been on a bunch of these shows recently. He was very likable. Well, he also disclosed he had 2 Jordan 10s. So what's happening is as more of this sort of big money is coming into cards, like they're buying wrestling cards too. I sold a Ric Flair some time ago, and I need to check. It might have been him. The more I think about it, maybe not, but it might be. I know Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan's agent is getting big into wrestling cards, and he's collecting basketball and stuff. So you're seeing these megastars like real crossover interest, and so I just think that the reality of it is that unless that guy just for whatever reason loves one of these regional stars from a kid, they're going to focus on the big names, and that's why you're seeing just such hotly contested auctions for the stars.
Let me run an idea by you that I kind of do and just get your opinion to maybe help other people. So I kind of like to set up almost like a little mutual fund portfolio of cards based on what I like. So, for example, you're talking about the Road Warriors. We showed the card earlier. One of the most famous tag teams. However, I still feel like mainstream pop culture doesn't necessarily know the Road Warriors like they know Flair or Hogan. So I like to player collect Road Warriors cards, specifically the cards that have like both of them on it. So to compensate and kind of safeguard myself from that, I'm buying a lot of The Rock because one of the biggest stars there is currently, huge wrestling star. I don't necessarily like The Rock as a fan, but I understand it. So I flip The Rock cards to pay for the big Hogan, Flair, and Austin stuff I like, while also buying the cheaper Road Warrior stuff and kind of just keeping it all together. That way I satisfy the collector aspect as well as the investor aspect. What are your thoughts on that process?
Well, I tell you, I think it's great. I watch. So we're sitting in this front room here, and what I put this phone up on a little tripod. Next to me, I've got a 75-inch TV on the wall, right? And I watch for the most part YouTube, and so I watch your content. I watch some of the other programs. I watch a lot of wrestling. I watch some sports card like content,
Yeah.
And I think that I've been particularly impressed with, I heard you say that you started with $10 and you flipped your way to a bunch of this stuff. I mean, honestly, congratulations. It's awesome.
Thank you. It's a lot of hard work.
I think that what's good about the hobby is, and I saw your post today on Instagram and Twitter about those rock cards. All right. Well, if you're selling them, I assume you're winning, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so what's the beauty though is this. So there's a lot of cards that have actually gone up, like that are not these pop culture, right? So I'll give you an example, like the 85 Wrestling All-Stars, that magazine set.
Yes.
Well, you're seeing people sell singles on eBay, and they don't move like instantly, right?
Right.
But let's say that in the Road Warriors, let's move them to the side because they're always one of the better ones. But like take like the Missing Link, right?
Good example.
You might be able to have bought that for $2, and you put it on there for $14. Might take 3 months, but somebody comes along and buys it, right?
Right.
Because there's not a lot of competition. You might be the guy that wanted that card. And so you found it for $3, and now you parlayed a win on the Rock. You reinvested $3 in the Missing Link, and now you got a $10 or $14 card. So I think where a lot of people, in recent years, I mean, now with these social media platforms, I mean, it's obvious I've got a lot of the nice cards, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I have a ton of low price cards, right? I mean, next to me over here, and that, I don't even know what to do with them because we're trying to reconfigure this room. I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 7 boxes on top of each other. Let's see, 4. No, I got 6 5,000 count boxes on top of each other.
Yikes.
Okay. Well, I've got loads of like the 88 Wonderama singles in there. I've got lots of 85 tops, lots of the O-Pee-Chee series too. Well, people got to understand, I mean, some of these commons are just sort of like semi-star cards that used to be 10 cents. If now they're 25 cents, you know,
That's a win.
pretty good. That's a win. Like, I mean, so I'm in, I told you I'm in the investment business. I mean, find, if you can take something from 3 to 14, I mean, on a percentage basis, it's unbelievable.
Right.
So I think the one thing in wrestling that is been a great angle, and it's going to continue to be a great angle, is the low price stuff. It's not going to, like when I love the term flex, I in terms of like, people are like, oh, like Justin Bieber, he's flexing his
here's
Pokemon
David Peck
cards,
again,
right?
flexing his 82 All-Stars.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and that, I mean, honestly, that's by design. I create content to try to like create interest,
Right.
and awareness.
Same.
I don't hide that. I saw early on when I was posting on message boards that like I've never had the Gary V effect, but I had an effect. And as soon as I would tell people that I thought a card was a good one, like you'd see like sales like quickly on eBay. Now here again, I never had the, meteoric type scenario that Gary V had where he says something's good and it goes up like tenfold.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would see that they would move. And so I knew that content was important. But so I think, back to your original question, I mean, I think parlaying more high price stuff into low price stuff can actually be a great strategy. One, you're happy from a collector standpoint, but two, I mean, like, how much did you sell that rock card for?
I bought them together as a lot for $50 shipped. I sold them as a lot for $450 shipped.
Okay, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, to be honest, like the reason I sold them, and it's just personal information, my wife needed a vehicle, so I don't want to go into debt to get a loan or anything. I paid cash for the vehicle, so I'm just trying to recoup some extra money in my savings accounts, and I was like, hey, I don't need these. And then I looked and saw the percentage of a winner. I'm like, I'll take it and move on.
Well, first of all, that's absolutely awesome. Second of all, this is why I'm so happy I own wrestling cards. I mean, think about that. You took $50, okay, that you can't even go out to a semi nice meal for
Right.
$50, okay? You set it aside, and some point in the future, it's $450. Now, so back to, like I do a lot of stock trading, right? And, good luck finding a 9-fold increase, right? I mean, that's really challenging. Like this year, like Tesla has been like in the last 12 months, like the just incredible stock, right? Well, I sure as hell didn't see it going up as much as it did. So the beauty of what you did is you had something that you liked, right? It went up and you were able to turn it into tangible money that alleviated the risk of the situation you were presented with, right?
Right.
But let's just pretend that you didn't do that. You could have taken that same $450 and found somebody that was selling, let's say, a wrestling collection in binders, and found a bunch of like commons and sets and you name it, and maybe doubled your money immediately, right?
Yep.
I mean, so the flipping opportunities in wrestling cards have been incredible. And, I think the challenge now is there's a lot of them listed on eBay. So now everybody, they're hip to the idea that cards are, potentially worth something. So it's gotten harder, I think, to find the value, just simply because you have more collectors looking and you've got a lot more inventory online where, people are like, I see some of these asking prices on some of this stuff and I just like scratch my head, right? But then like 5 days later, I look at completed auctions. I'm like, they just sold that for $150, and hey, it is what it is. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and to be honest, that is the first time ever that I've taken money out of cards and not put it back into cards. That's the way I've gotten everything I own, because I just keep reinvesting, like you said. Next question: what are you buying currently? Just in general, I'm not talking about a specific year. Said anything. Are you still actively looking and buying cards? And if so, what are you still on the older classic stuff? Are you kind of branching out? What are you looking at?
Well, I check eBay every day, and I check eBay frequently during the day. So I just bought this pack of the Road Warriors and the Rick Martel. I'm always looking for Wrestling All Stars cards. One of the benefits of being sort of online and just, people sort of figured me out. I get approached sometimes, with people wanting to sell me stuff. And so in the past year, a lot of the stuff I bought came from direct sales off eBay, right? And these weren't items like where we circumvented eBay. They're like reached out to me specifically and said, you want to buy. But I don't like all the terms in the hobby, like player collector and super collector. I just think we're all collectors. I mean, whatever. But Brock Lesnar is my guy. So I'm constantly hunting for his football cards. I think that those are neat. The Carnation set, I had a devastating situation happen a couple years ago where I bought a PSA 9, of the Koloffs. And it was a population 1. I paid $500. Guy listed it at an aspirational price, and I said, screw it. I don't think it was worth 500, but I just was like, okay, I'm buying it, So I'm so excited, and it comes in the mail, and it has a huge wrinkle on the front. So I'd like to think the grader did not miss it. I'd like to think it happened when they sealed it. They just put so much pressure on the card. Don't know the real answer. But what had happened, unfortunately, so I had a PSA 7. So in the process, I sold the 7 before the 9 got here, because I was like, okay, I can sell the 7, get like $200, right? It'll offset some of the sting of paying $500 for this card that here again, probably was a high price. So at least then. So now I'm like, oh my God, my 7's gone and the 9 is ruined, right? So I sent it back to the seller. I helped him work with PSA. He got compensated. I don't know the details. But I had a 6. So I have a 6, right? So I'm always trying to work on the Carnation set. I just got that Road Warriors 8.5. So right now I've got 5 of the 6 cards in their top grade, but I have a Koloffs and a 6. So I'm hot in pursuit of that. The Wrestling All-Stars, that's sort of a given. And I'm into the 85 Topps WWF stickers.
Oh, okay.
Need a few more of those. And just trying to complete that set. I don't know that I'll make it to the top, but I've put together a nice run of those. And I tell you, I guess in some ways I have regrets not investing across borders. Like in like 2010, 11, I started doing some baseball to, try to grade it out. And man, I look at some of the stuff I sold and you're just like, it's sickening. I had it in 2010. I had bought a Jordan PSA 9, 86 Fleer for $1,100.
Oh
and,
my gosh.
Yeah. And I sold it like a few months later.
I'm sure you just go ahead. I'm sorry.
I sold it for $1,250. I broke even with these. Yeah, now, I mean, in theory, I put the money into the Wrestling All-Stars back then,
Yeah,
so
you
it
still
went
came
up.
out ahead, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't know now because that Jordan, I mean, some of them things are firing off at like 30 and 40 grand. But one of the things I think that we all have to keep in mind is you can't look backwards, right?
100%.
Okay. It's so easy to play Monday morning quarterback, but it is what it is. I mean, I looked at like, so the 2002 WWE Royal Rumble is a set I like, right? I sold a John Cena 9 for like $20 or something.
Oh my.
Yeah. I sold a 10 for like 125. Randy Orton, I think I sold a 10 for like $40. I mean, I naturally kept, some for me, but the point I'm making is that I could sit here today and cry over spilled milk. But at the time when they were worth a lot less, like that paid for like the whole box, and I got the rest of them for free.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So I just think you just have to kind of like, you look back and, okay, that stinks, but, you move forward. And so I'm just, but as far as like we've discussed this online, the new stuff, just I don't have any real attachment to it. I don't really have interest in it. And so I'm sticking with the vintage or quote unquote vintage wrestling.
Brings up several questions I actually had down, but you mentioned it, so I want to bring them up too. You said you had bought baseball. Is there anything currently that you have as like your collection or stuff you're looking at outside of wrestling?
No, just the only thing I do is the sports outside of wrestling, right? So like I'll give you an example. One card that I've just never pulled the trigger on, but I like is Wahoo McDaniel has, I want to say, a 1967 Topps football card.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's 60. I think it's 67, but neat card, and it's just that I just haven't pulled the trigger. So that's something that I like. I think for me, I love to collect, and I've bought a lot of cards that are pure collector cards, but I also like the stuff to go up in value. I mean, I've never hid that, right?
Right.
So let's say I drop $250 on a Wahoo 9. I don't really envision that card going up a lot. Very niche audience. You've got some of the people that collect the actual football set. But outside of that, I don't think you have a few crossover buyers like me, right? But I don't see that going from like $250 to $1,000, right? Well, if I put that same $250 in this carnation pack over here, I actually have a chance to really multiply that money.
Right.
If the Martell grades an 8, it's probably $150, $200 card, right? So at least it pays for itself. If the Road Warriors gets an 8, that's probably a $400 card. So all of a sudden, I've got a $600 pack. Let's say I got to spend another $30, say, to get them graded. So 280 that turns into 600. Not like, it's not the end all be all, but I mean, it's still like doubling your money, right? It's a big win. I mean, 100% is a big win. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if the Road Warriors grades a 7 and the Martell grades an 8, it's probably a push, right? I'd make, I'm up, right? And I freed them from their case and had fun with you, right? So, that's a win too. There's not an example here where I lose.
Right.
And so with wrestling cards, I've never like knowingly entered into a losing scenario. I've opened, like in the past, I've lost money on a buy. I opened an 82 All-Star set that had, a lot of times they look great, but you open them up and there's a pressure ding on every single card, right? Underneath the top card. I lost money on that, right? So, it stunk. I mean, quite frankly, if I'd held on to them, if I'd held on to the Hogan and just threw it like in a box, I probably would have been okay. But, so I lost some money on that. But on the flip side, I mean, I've done 82 all-star buys where, earlier this year, I bought some sets from Jerry Lawler, right-hand guy, right?
Yep.
And a bunch of those are at PSA now, just sort of waiting to be graded. Well, I pulled 2 Ric Flair 9s out of those packs. Okay. I sent those in express. I was like, these look good. Well, a 9 just sold the other day for 3,200. It doesn't take a genius to figure out I'm going to win big, right?
Right.
So I like to, if I'm going to, I like the money to try to grow, so that's why I've sort of, like, Brock Lesnar was my project where I didn't really care because Brock's my favorite, and it took forever for his cards to start moving. They're finally starting to go up a little bit. But for the most part, I buy stuff where I think there's opportunity.
Okay, so a couple other things to just kind of piggyback off of what we talked about. You said you don't like a lot of the modern stuff. Is there any modern, so we're talking releases, say, within the past few years, is there any of those that you've seen that you like? Or what do you think about what I personally do is I buy up the serial number paralleled autographs, any kind of the more limited runs of the big stars. I still think that, like, everybody wants to go for the 97, I think it's Panini WWF stickers right now because it has that rock in it. I'd rather have the limited run rock chrome releases, the out of 10, out of 25. What are your thoughts on that as far as modern and the rarity scarcity of the big stars?
Well, for me, it's not so much that I think the stuff's bad, right? It's just that, so if I go to Target and let's say they have some WWE boxes, I don't even know what they cost, but let's say it's $100 just for argument's sake.
Sure.
And I may get left with $20 worth of merchandise. I might get left with $200 worth of merchandise. But that's a lot of risk to me because I can either lose 80 cents on the dollar or I double my money, right? Those are not very good odds. I just opened this Road Warriors pack. I didn't feel like I could lose. So to me, a lot of it just has to do with the economics of the situation. I will say this, though. If we continue to see this wave of new buyers coming into wrestling cards, some of the modern stuff has potential, right? Like some years back, there was a Roman Reigns super refractor. And, I think it sold for like $1,500.
That's pretty good.
Well, to be honest with you, if somebody put that up today, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it went for like $5 or $10 grand.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's worth that. I mean, what's anything worth? It's only worth what somebody's
what the market tells you it's worth.
Yeah. But I mean, think about that for a second. Like, we sort of joked about flexing. Only one person gets to say they own the Roman Reigns super refractor, right?
Yep.
And so all it takes is 2 people that really want that, and you've got a high price, right? So I've seen tremendous sales of, take The Rock. Like, I mean, anything The Rock is sort of hot right now. Okay.
Right.
So
got that new show coming out.
Well, no doubt. But I mean, so if you're buying, like, say, a number to 5, just for argument's sake, if somebody wants to become try to put together like a really great rock collection, well, they need that.
Right.
And the other issue is a lot of times all 5 of those never surface because
that's a big thing I've noticed.
The packs don't get open. Like, people leave the pack sealed, right? And so maybe only 2 of them or 3 of them ever really show up. And then on top of that, let's say I go buy the box and I get one and I want to have this rock card. Well, it's locked away forever, or for the most part forever,
Yeah.
So I do think, it's like, so Brett and I were talking after his show for a second, and he bought a really limited run Becky Lynch that PSA 10, it's signed. Okay. I don't have any interest in these female wrestler cards,
Right.
but I certainly don't begrudge anybody who does.
Yeah.
So let's say that 5 years from now, Becky comes back from pregnancy and she stays on top and is, a great star. Well, what if she wants the card? Okay. What if like a family member of hers wants the card? One of the things that's happening in basketball cards, some of these guys are getting into their own cards.
Right.
And I don't blame them, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
And this sounds super egotistical, but I'm telling you this right now. If I was making $24 million a year and there were some trading cards in me, I'm buying them. I'm not lying. Okay. Why not? And not even for investment, just for the hell of it.
Just
right?
to have them. Yeah.
Just to have them, So I think that the thing is that, what if like a wrestler decided to get into wrestling cards? I mean, you just never know. So I think the modern stuff, what's really good about it is that if they get a big push, if their popularity gains, you could kind of have like similar results to modern sports cards, because the challenge, like Ric Flair has been on Raw lately. Nothing he does on Raw is helping or hurting his card value.
Right.
Okay.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah, it's good and bad. But like Sasha Banks apparently was just named like top wrestler by ESPN. That can't hurt her card values, right?
Right.
Let's say she, because I always like years ago, I was like, man, this chick is good. Like I think she's got great charisma. She's super talented. She's obviously in great shape. She's got a lot going for her. Well, let's say that she goes into WrestleMania. I don't even know if she's, where she's at on the card, and let's say she puts on a tremendous match. And then they keep the strap on her for the next year. Can't hurt her cards. I mean, they're probably going to go up.
Yeah.
So I think that from a speculative standpoint, if I was to speculate, I would be sticking with the modern like mega stars. I would not be going down the card. Like take Kofi Kingston, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but his chest should disqualify him from being on top. Okay. And I know that sounds bad, but it's
I know what you mean.
Give me a break. Well, no, I mean, like, the thing about like John Cena. I mean, John Cena looks like a action hero, like a G.I. Joe figure, right? I mean, he's got a look where you're like, this guy should be the top dog, or he should be in the hunt. Kofi Kingston does not have that. So what's going to happen 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Nobody's going to care about that guy.
Yep, unless you're just like a specific collector of them, like we were talking about earlier with the Buck Zumhoff card you need if somebody's putting a set. But something else, you mentioned Cena and Sasha Banks. Both of them are pop culture stars. Sasha Banks was in Mandalorian recently, and John Cena's everywhere. So that's another thing back to the pop culture wrestling cards versus regular wrestling cards.
Well, John Cena, I've seen several commercials recently where one, he's in the commercial and one's his voice. Okay. That can't hurt the value. It only helps the value, and so the crossover nature of wrestling, I mean, the goal is for them to parlay their, for lack of a better term, acting skills into more money, into more marketability, Right. So I would stick with those. And, I'm not picking on Kofi Kingston, but like, I just mean example. I just think that he's somebody that, he won the title for a minute, but nobody can tell me that long-term that his collectibles have a chance to compare to Hulk Hogan's. I mean, I just think I don't even know if anybody even tried to make that argument, but you get my point.
Right. So since we're talking modern, what is the most modern card you own? Like as a collection piece.
Somebody gave me a Ric Flair graded card that came out at one of the Nationals a few years ago.
Oh yeah, okay. I think it was probably one of the Leaf products.
OBAK, OBAC or something. It's in the box somewhere. The I bought some, like when Steven Strasburg came out, I bought some of those Allen and Genter cards. I probably have some of those somewhere in a box, like not many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just haven't speculated on the new stuff. I mean, like I said, I think anytime you're pumping money into a hobby, I just don't agree with the idea of like throwing it away. Right. And I think you see a lot of people that buy wax packs and end up with nothing, and I did see, it's funny, I did a share on Twitter the other day. Some guy nailed like a number to 10 Zhan. Okay. Awesome, right? You hit the lottery. But for every person that opened a pack, 99% aren't going to get that result,
So this is pretty much the last question, but it's a little bit long-winded, and it kind of ties up some things we were talking about. You just mentioned Zion, and you were talking about how kind of the way to make more money is getting harder within wrestling. But I know you keep up with the sports stuff, so I'm sure you've seen like PSA 10 or PSA 9s, even the Luka Doncic Prism card is like, super popular. And even though there's like a huge population of them, people are still paying, $1,000 for those things. Do you see wrestling cards getting to that, even slightly to that point? And what do you see just overall for the hobby and the future of wrestling cards?
Well, I think there's a few cards. Like, so for example, like take 85 Topps Hogan. You've seen an explosion in that card in price.
Right.
You've also seen a lot of new graded. You're going to keep seeing some graded. That has a lot of, it's an iconic image. There's people like me that open packs in 85. I didn't open many, but I opened some. And I think a lot of people like love Hulkamania. It's a picture of Hulkamania.
Yeah.
So I think a card like that, where you've seen a lot of turnover. I mean, you're seeing 8 sell every other day. I mean, there's a lot of them, right? So a card like that, probably can absorb a lot of submissions and hold up and maybe go up. As far as like, so like Golden Auctions right now has a Luka. And it's one of the rare print ones, and I think it's at like 280,000, plus the buyer's premium,
Yeah.
So you're at 320,000. There's only a couple wrestling cards that could ever break 6 figures. I mean, you've got the 82 Hogan and a PSA 10, and I know there's BGS collectors out there, and but PSA and BGS grade those differently. Like if you see the BGS 9.5 Hogans, they have virtually no lower border. They will not grade a PSA 10. I mean, some of those people have already tried. Like it's just not going to happen. What PSA looks for is a lot of lower border. They want a full square card, right? And it's tough on that card. I mean, there's just some of these that have the way they were cut from the factory, just not a lot of lower border most of the time. So if you saw a PSA 10 Hogan, yeah, that's a 6-figure card right now. If you saw a PSA 10 Andre the Giant, it's easily a $50,000 card, and maybe 6 figures. It's sort of debatable, but most of the cards will be lucky to break into 4 figures, and even less could break into 5 figures. So I think what it really boils down to is a couple of things. The major sports, there's just a lot larger collector base. So,
right.
So there's more buyers, that's obvious. But you're also seeing a lot of hoarding, So like I saw Gary Vee, I watched a video yesterday. He's got something like 53 LeBron Topps Chrome.
Yeah, those
okay?
Chromes.
Well, I think one of those, I think he's going for like 24,000. So I mean, here you got a guy that may have $1 million of value in one card. I don't think that there's wrestling collectors that have the deep pockets to make that happen, right? I mean, it's funny. Last night, my wife was watching TV, and there's a fun show. I think it was on Netflix, and it's about these rich Asian people, right? Like out in California. And I'm not talking like rich. I'm talking rich. Like one of the ladies is like from a family that's like a billionaire. I mean, like mega money, right? So if one of those people decides to, let's say, become a basketball card collector, like instantaneously they're a force to be reckoned with. Like
Right.
you can't compete with that, right? But in the wrestling card market, I'd say you're less likely to see like lots of new collectors that have like such deep pockets that they can just basically run everybody over. Um, so getting the prices that high, I'd say, are slim. Now, on the flip side, you take the 82 Hogan. I mean, we've talked about it extensively, but now a 7 is going for like 2,500 or more. So there's real interest. I mean, you can't pump a card up in a grade of a 7, to 2,500 or 3,000, and it be like a crummy card. Like it just
Right.
doesn't happen. So I just think that the comparing wrestling to baseball, basketball is tough, for a multitude of reasons. But I think the primary drawback is just that the average person that's going to sit on wrestling cards is not loaded. It's just not. Um, I have obviously I've graded a lot of cards. I still have a lot of cards, and um, you know, I I don't want to sell them, right? But the reality of it is that you also wouldn't see me racing out to buy them at these prices, in the
Correct.
sense that okay, like so. I, I don't really know what a PSA 9 Hogan will go for. I mean, we saw the signed one go for 20 grand, and then a few months later was flipped
36.
for like 36.6, right? So let's say a PSA 9 is 20,000, just for argument's sake. I'm not going to go out and spend $60,000 to buy 3 of them.
Nope.
I just not. And I'm not saying it's not worth that. I'm just saying that I'm just not the guy that would be competitive at that price. So what it's really going to boil down to is that like Gary Vee, for example, he stepped up to the plate and he bought a Flair PSA 10. Okay. And so he bought it, the guy bought it on eBay and ended up selling it to Gary. And the population report shows 6. There's only 5 because early on, and it's actually the guy I bought my first set of Wrestling All-Stars cards from. He liked BGS. So he took a PSA 10 and he crossed it over to BGS, right? Which now obviously looks like a bad move. Maybe back then it wasn't such a big deal. But okay, so there's 5 of those. Well, I've got 2. Gary's got 1. My buddy Greg's got the other, and then Ray from Hawaii has the 5th. If one of these, like if somebody out there really wants one, they can't even get one.
Get to
it's not there. Okay. So let's just say another one hits the market. Let's say that Greg decides, and he won't because he likes his stuff, but let's just say Greg decides to sell his. And you may remember a couple years ago when Flair did that pep talk with the Colts.
Right.
And they're all doing the Ric Flairs, and cutting the promos in the locker room. Well, what if Gary talks to one of these football players and shows him his Ric Flair 10, and that football player says, "Oh man, Ric Flair's my guy. I got to get that." The sky's the limit.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what's happened in baseball and basketball. It hasn't quite happened in wrestling. I'm not ruling it out, but I just would say it just remains to be seen.
I'm a big believer that it will happen, but it's kind of like what we've talked about. It's only going to be like those top stars: Hogan, Flair, Andre, Rock, Steve Austin. people that have transcended pop culture into sports, into movies and TV shows, because all it's going to take is a little bit of that institutional money to get into it. And then, in my opinion, it's just going to, the tide's going to raise all ships, so to speak.
Well, one final comment on this is, so a private equity firm reached out to me on Twitter, and the guy sent me his information, and I just, I haven't responded back. They want to add wrestling into their fund, right?
Amazing.
I mean, it is. And so one of the things that people have got to understand, and, I always joke about it because people, for whatever reason, love to take the other side of my opinion online.
I've noticed.
I don't understand why. I don't know if it's just like they just want to be a dick. I don't get it, because if I comment on something extensively, the chances of me not putting some time into it and really thinking it over is obviously not high. So some months back, I started a thread about when Collectible, the app, launched. They were doing this 53 Topps Mickey Mantle card. And I wanted to buy in just for fun. And it just turned out that it was more complicated with my job than I realized. And I just said, okay, I'm not going to do it. Well, that said, one of the things I said, listen, this is a game changer, because now you've got, before to sell a $200,000 card, in this case, that card was $2.5 million.
Right.
But let's just say a $200,000 card, there's a small number of people that legitimately can afford that. But you all of a sudden have a company buy the card and open it up to 600 investors who put in 100, 200, 500, 1,000, etc. And the demand has exploded.
Yep.
Okay. So what's happened, they've launched, there's other Rally is one. I think there's another company. I don't know the name. I mean, it's shocking how quickly it's selling out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is anything that's considered high end, the upside has now changed. So take the 94 Miami Bumblebee Dwayne Johnson card.
Yep.
Okay. We've seen a meteoric rise in that card. Okay. Well, what's interesting, you don't see any 10s hardly for sale. Like, even the price has gone up so much, but it's not like people are rushing out to sell it. But let's say tomorrow that Collectible, so the last PSA 10 was like 14,100 or something. Let's say they put one up on their app tomorrow at 20,000. Okay. It could sell out in a heartbeat, right? Small investors, I'm going to put in 200, I'm going to put in 300, etc. Well, 15 to 20,000 overnight, simply because they're allowing access to smaller dollars. Okay.
Right.
These private equity funds. So I watched a video recently, and the two highest priced basketball cards sold to one of these funds, right? So that's not a natural buyer. It's just pooled money that is trying to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if all of a sudden you have a bunch of people collectively that put their money in a fund, that fund has a much bigger, power in the market, right? I mean, all of a sudden, instead of on their own, maybe they could only afford 1,000. Now they're part of a $1.8 million card. So this institutional money that's coming in, both from retail availability and just institutional, right? It's big. And so I think today, so Collector's Universe, probably the thing that I look at that tells me the strength of the market was the explosion in the number of cards being graded. So when I started in 2010, PSA graded 1.6 million cards that year. Well, a few months ago, and I don't know what the current total is now, but Joe Orlando put out in an article that they were taking in 250,000 cards a week. Okay,
It's amazing.
That's over 13 million cards in a year. Okay, so I mean that it doesn't take a genius to figure out that the interest level, has gone up. Well, today, so Collectors Universe had initially agreed to sell theirself to Stephen Cohen and Nat Turner, a group by them. Well, they had to raise the offer. So today it came out that they raised it to $92 a share from somewhere, I think it was 75 or 76. So that said, I mean, there's so much big money that this has caught their attention. So I think we're just in one of these periods where, we'll see, hindsight will be 2020. A year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll look back and say, well, I should have known this or I should have known that, that we'll see. But the market is so strong right now. And I just think that there's a run that's still very much taking place.
Well, David, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for flying the flag and fighting the good fight for wrestling cards all of these years, getting it to where it is. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
So I'm on Instagram at 1982 Wrestling All Stars, and I'm on Twitter at dpeck100. What you'll find, it's probably not a day that goes by that I don't get direct messages with questions. If you need information, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always willing to help. I mean, I'm not here to give people, sort of investment advice on cards, but if because I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think a lot of us are just sort of flying by the seat of our pants. But regardless, I'll do anything I can to help. I mean, I think it's great that we've got more people coming into the hobby and enjoying what I've been enjoying for a while.
100% agree. Thanks for taking the time to come on to the show, and thanks for checking out the videos. Thanks everybody for watching, and until next time, see you, wrestling fans. Thanks again to David for coming on.